Welcome back into the show. Of course, Dr. Justin Anderson, Metabolic Coaching. Check out the website, metabolic-coaching.net. Cut the killer carbs right here on AM 580. Of course, the number directly to Dr. Anderson, 448-0322. That's 448-0322. Good morning, Doctor. Good to see you back in the saddle again. And
good morning, Wade.
Still keeping that weight off, I see.
Yes. Yeah.
I just had to say it, right?
Yeah. So we've talked about this before. One thing to do that's a motivator is weigh yourself each and every day. And weigh yourself each and every day, because just from the fact of weighing yourself and then writing it down on a sheet of paper. So weigh and write it down on a sheet of paper. That makes you aware that what you're eating and what you're doing affects your weight every day. Only weigh yourself first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning when you get up. Don't weigh yourself later on in the day, because, I may weigh 170 pounds first thing in the morning. If I weigh myself in the evening, I can weigh 177.
Yeah.
Put on 7 pounds of water weight. Mm-hmm. Most of it's water, some of it's food, and all that sort of stuff.
So I probably should do it before I have the big chicken fried steak with extra gravy. Just kidding. Look at you. Okay, now.
Oh, wait.
You're like, wait, have you not listened to anything I've said? I'm just kidding. Okay.
The thing is, your weight's going to be up for 2 days after that.
Yes, it would.
So,
okay.
Weighing yourself the next morning is not going to help. And there's another trick, is that a lot of people, the weight fluctuates a lot day by day. So, maybe today you weigh and you're 200 pounds, and you weigh tomorrow and you're 204, and you weigh the next day and you're 202. So, weight can fluctuate 2 pounds, 4 pounds a day, just based on mainly changes in fluid balance. And so one of the tricks is weigh yourself once a day in the morning and write it down each day. And then for each week, you just average it. So for week 1, you take all the weights that you have and you average it. And so that's your average weight for the week. And then when it comes to judging whether or not you're gaining weight or losing weight, when you take the average and you say, well, this week my average weight was 200 pounds. And the next week my average weight was 198. Well, that's good. So I lost 2 pounds. That's the average, even though it may fluctuate up and down 4 pounds day by day. And next week it's 196. So, you're on the right track. So a weekly average weight is a good thing to help you if you have fluctuations going up and down.
What do you say to those that say, and I've, again, some of these exercise gurus and all that, oh, take the scales, throw them in the trash, don't worry about that. You need to look in the mirror, see how you're looking. How are your clothes feeling? Are they getting looser?
There's absolutely something to that, because
don't weigh yourself at all. It's what they say. Some say
there will be times when, especially if you're exercising, there will be times where you're building muscle and muscle adds pounds, and at the same time you're losing fat, and the fat subtracts pounds, and your total weight change will be 0. But your body composition change will be improved because you'll have more muscle and less fat. So there could be something to that, especially if you're working out, doing some strenuous exercise, some like muscle building, resistance exercise. However, I don't recommend. Most of my clients aren't people who are really trying to bulk up. And so, they want to lose weight. And by lose weight, they mean lose fat. And so their weight will tend to go down over time. At the same time, there are some people who your weight can plateau for 2 or you're doing I do a program called Metabolic Coaching. And in Metabolic Coaching, we teach people a very low carbohydrate diet, which is less than 20 net carbs a day. It's wheat-free, gluten-free, sugar-free, because those are the most inflammatory foods. And on that diet, some people, they'll plateau for, say, 2 weeks or even 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden they lose 3 pounds. And so that kind of plateau can happen, and you can feel your body like your clothes fitting looser, something like that. One client famously would come into follow-up come into follow-up meetings, and she would say, well, I don't know if I lost any weight because I didn't weigh myself, but I can tell my body's changing because my underwear fits different.
Yeah.
And so, and it was like that kind of week after week. So we always got to imagine her in her underwear. Is that my underwear fits different? So,
Right.
so yeah, you can tell if your body's changing, even if your weight's not changing, by your clothes fitting more loosely. And so, if you have a membership at a gym, if you are someone who goes to a gym, then what you can have them do is you can have them measure your body fat percentage. They can do it either with calipers or with some different sort of impedance techniques, and have them measure it this month, and then measure it again next month, and then measure it again next month. And that would give you some indication that you're losing fat and you're gaining muscle. Also, one thing that by saying my clothes fit more loosely, you're saying, oh, well, my waist measurement is not as big as it was last week or the week before. And so you can actually measure those things. You could take a tape measure and you measure your upper arms, you measure your waist, you measure your hips, you measure your thighs, and then you can take you add all of those measurements up to get a single number.
Yeah.
And you take that single number, and then next week you measure all the same places on your body. And you can watch those inches slowly. So maybe the total number is 105, and then next week it's 103. And then next week, the total measurement's 101. And so you see yourself making progress that way, even if the scale doesn't move. That's the same thing as saying, oh, my pants fit looser this week.
Yeah, see, this is kind of interesting because I was just sitting there thinking as you were talking about the fact that, and my wife gets on me all the time about
I'm going to
this.
start every show by asking you how your underwear fits.
Well, it fits fine, but I never buy any because really, in all honesty, I haven't bought a pair of jeans, and I'm wearing jeans right now. These jeans I bought maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It's the same. I don't really have massive fluctuations in weight. Not really. Did you go skinny? And of course, I wear a 36 to 38 jean, which is too big. But it's not that I'm. Every year I'm turning around going, oh man, I got to go get a 40. Oh, and the next year I got to go get a 42. I haven't seen that in about a decade for me.
That's what happened to me, was that my jeans that I was wearing, so I'm 171 pounds today, this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 213 and a half pounds. And what happened to me was my jeans were, I was used to wearing a 36.
Okay.
And then I wore a 38. And then I wore a 40.
Did you
and
really?
And then sometimes I would have to buy
Wow.
a 40 or a 42, depending on the brand. And I was like, man, that is just too big. And that's what happens to people, is you reach a point at which you say, man, I can't believe that I'm buying clothes this big. I got to do something about it. And what I recommend you do about it is do a very low carbohydrate diet where you cut out the bread, the pasta, the sugar. And we'd be happy to coach you through that and make it actually happen.
I know, because that's the key, right? And you start losing the weight. And I see, people on yo-yo diets that don't make the lifestyle change, which we talk about. It's a lifestyle change. But the people who do the yo-yo dieting, they may lose a bunch of weight, 40, 30, 40, 50 pounds, okay? And then the next year, it's almost like, well, I better hold on to these jeans over here because you never know.
It took me 2 years to throw away my fat jeans.
Okay, that's a good point, right?
It took me 2 years. I mean, I kept all my fat jeans and all of those, and my shorts. I had these 40-inch, so my waist went down to like 34. My 34 or 33 is what I wear now. And so what I would do is I would take my fat shorts, my 40-inch shorts, and put a belt and just gather them all up at the beginning. Up at the top. It took me 2 years to throw them away because I thought, well, the weight's just going to come back on. I thought, well, there's going to be failure here or failure there. And when I started losing weight, I was exercising at the gym. I was mainly doing cardio and some strength training, and I did that for about 3 months. And I lost 30 pounds. And then my life got busy, I ended up having I didn't have the gym time. I didn't have time to go back and exercise, and so I was all done at the gym, and uh, I knew the weight was going to come back on. I said, well, I'm done exercising. Now the weight's going to come back on. And instead, just by continuing my diet, less than 20 net carbohydrates a day, I was able to lose an additional 10 pounds.
So you were doing cut the killer carbs while going to the gym.
Absolutely.
And then you cut the gym, you got busy, and so you couldn't go to the gym anymore, but you stuck with
the diet.
And then,
right.
and as a matter of fact, you didn't gain any weight back. In fact, you lost more.
I lost it.
Wow, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, and so I was convinced mentally. I thought, oh man, the weight's going to come back on, but it didn't. And then I just stayed with the diet, less than 20 net carbs. I started that about 5 years ago, and I still do it today. I do the same thing 5 years ago as I do today. The one thing that I do differently, well, there's two things I do differently today than I did 5 years ago, now that I've lost the weight. Number one is I really try to emphasize making sure that I eat enough fat. Because the thinner you get, the more towards your ideal body weight you get, the more fat you need to eat in order to power your body. And number two, one day a week I do a carb cycling. And a carb cycling, or a carb refeed day is what they would call it. And so one day a week I'll eat more than 20 net carbs, whether that's some gluten-free pizza crust, which is kind of a cruddy carb, or if it's a sweet potato or something like that. So I do that, and I'm throwing away the fat genes.
So you don't consider that day a cheat day then, right? Or no?
I don't consider it a cheat day, or it'll be fruit. Like we have a garden in our backyard. We grew watermelons, and so there'll be like one day a week I'll eat watermelon at dinner, that sort of thing. If you do a carb refeed day, if you do it one day a week, you want to do something that's non-inflammatory. You still want to avoid the sugars, the gluten, especially the wheat. You want to avoid those. The best thing to do a carb refeed on is going to be like a cup of white rice or a cup of sweet potato. Or you could use fruit. Fruit's kind of objectionable because fruit contains fructose, which is fruit sugar, which happens to be sugars just happen to be uniquely fattening. Sorry. Grandma was right. Sugars are uniquely fattening, even if it comes from fruit. So it's something that's non-objectionable. And the interesting thing is the reason fruit makes you fat because if humans were in the wild, like if we were in the wild before agriculture, the only time we would have fresh fruit would be in the late summer and the fall. And in the late summer and the fall, you're supposed to fatten up for the winter. And because in the winter,
just like an animal.
I'm
putting on my winter coat right now, doctor.
Well, come on. Come join us for free on a Friday, and we'll take your winter coat off. But there's a
right.
book. I wanted to kind of talk about books. There's a book called The Fat Switch. The Fat Switch is by a guy named Johnson. He's an MD, and in The Fat Switch, he talks about all of the animals that that hibernate or that migrate or whatever. They massively fatten up before they hibernate. They massively fatten up before they migrate, before like these Canadian geese that are coming in, and it's something that they have developed in order to survive. And for humans, fattening up is a survival mechanism. You are designed that when you eat sugars, carbohydrates, that you put on lots and lots of weight, because winter is coming, and when winter comes, you're going to fast a lot because the food's not going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we get to winter, and in winter we walk into Walmart or Market Street, and there's fruit everywhere, and there's carbs everywhere, and there's sugar everywhere.
Oh, and don't forget Thanksgiving and Christmas
and
all the goodies, and I mean, it just piles on, right? I mean, what do they call it? The terrible 10 during the holidays? I mean, you if you just go hog wild, I mean, you're going to gain 10, 15 pounds.
One of the goals for the holidays, for like something like the week of Thanksgiving or the week of Christmas, I usually tell people don't try to lose weight. Your goal for the holidays should just be to keep your weight the same. Because if you can get through Thanksgiving without putting on 10 pounds, you're ahead of the game. And if you can get through Christmas without putting on 10 pounds, you're ahead of the game. You don't have to lose weight on Christmas week, but you don't want to put on 10 pounds because you'll have to lose that over a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I tend to totally agree with that. Last week, of course, I told you the story about the 10-day cruise. Either way,
I thought you were getting on the program. You told me that last week.
no, I am. No, I mean I'm doing it now. I mean I'm feeling great now. I'm incorporating fasting into it.
Mm-hmm.
I intermittent fast 5 days a week now. I don't have lunch and breakfast. I eat in a window.
One great thing about fasting is that for some people, dairy makes them gain weight. Or for some people, nuts make them gain weight. So these are like full fat dairy is a friendly food you could have
on the low carb.
Yeah, on the low carb.
Sure.
And for some people, it may be strawberries, or it may be whatever the unique food is for you that causes you to gain weight. And if you do some fasting, well, when you're doing fasting, you're cutting out the dairy and the nuts and the berries and whatever that unique food is for you that might be causing you to gain weight. You cut them all out. And by cutting them all out,
but how do you know which one that is, though? I mean, you try one at a time and for like a week or something and see.
There's two different ways.
Yeah.
Well, there's three different ways, three different kind of approaches. Number one, we talked about doing your daily weight, writing down your daily weight on a sheet of paper.
Uh-huh.
Well, you follow the average to see if you're gaining or losing weight. Mm-hmm. So the weekly average is for that. But your daily weight, the ups and downs, well, if your weight goes up 2 pounds or more, you probably ate something in the last 48 hours that's inflammatory for you. So if you keep the combination of a food diary, or you can on your phone just take pictures of your food. Take pictures of your food. That's it. If you keep the combination of a food diary or taking pictures of your food along with your daily weights, and you say, oh, look, I'm up 4 pounds today. Look back and see, what did I eat in the last 2 days that might have set me off? Oh, well, it was all that cheese, or it was the berries. And then you follow your daily weights, and the next time you're up 4 pounds, then you ate something inflammatory in the last 48 hours. So you can do it that way, which is just track your weight, follow it daily, and look at your food diary. Or you can do something called an elimination diet. And I've had some clients that I've put on an elimination diet. I use a book called The Plan by Lynn Jeanette Recitas. The Plan is not a low carbohydrate diet, but it's an anti-inflammatory elimination diet. And then she slowly adds things back. And so by slowly adding things back, you can say, okay, my weight's the same, or I'm losing weight. And then when I add dairy back, I gain 5 pounds. Oh.
Would you throw eggs in the dairy mix, the box of dairy, or is it more the cheeses and that kind of stuff?
It's cheeses, milk products, specifically
okay,
milk
but
products.
not eggs. You don't classify eggs as dairy?
No, because they don't come from a dairy.
Well, that's true. Well, I mean, but it's farm, right?
Well, I mean, beets come from a farm, but
okay.
They're not dairy.
All right. But I mean, I'm just saying, right? I mean, eggs. But eggs are like, I mean, so, let me ask it this way.
I'll say something.
Does anybody have an egg intolerance? Because I love the eggs.
Yeah. Some people.
If you eat too many eggs, you gain too much weight.
Okay, so egg protein. Egg, number one, is like a complete food. It has all the vitamins and stuff, the protein, the fats, the cholesterol that you need to be healthy.
Right.
But some people do have a reaction to the factory eggs, which are your standard eggs that you get. The standard eggs that you get,
the white regular eggs.
The chickens are in these coops and they never move and they kind of sit in their own feces and they're sick and they're fed grains and they never get to move. And so they have inflammatory mediators can be found in the eggs themselves, and so people can be allergic to that, and so the eggs can be inflammatory. They tend not to get those if they buy something like a free-range egg from an actual farmer that you know here in town, like if you go to the farmer's market, or if you have eggs from your own backyard chickens. Because the chickens just tend not to be as sick, and since they're not as sick, you're not eating as inflammatory food. So yeah, eggs can be a real thing that can cause allergies or inflammation. The whole idea behind gaining weight with certain foods is that they're inflammatory for you, and so you eat them, your digestive tract gets inflamed, and that causes you to put on water weight. But that chronic inflammation of eating those same foods week after week after week, with chronic inflammation, your body puts on fat, and so.
Mm. And so it's possible eggs could do that if you're
It's
eating the
possible.
wrong kind of eggs.
It's possible, but I would say that's fairly uncommon.
Okay.
So you can do your daily weights and follow your food diary to look for food sensitivities. You can do an elimination diet and slowly add things back in to look for food sensitivities. Um, what or the third thing is you're doing your low carbohydrate diet. You're losing weight, but then you get stuck. And when you get stuck and you plateau, you don't lose weight for 3 weeks, then you say, well, okay, what am I gonna see it cut out to see if it's the culprit? And so you cut out dairy for 1 week and see if you lose weight, or you cut out nuts for 1 week and see if you lose weight. So you can kind of week by week take a certain food that is a commonly reactive food and cut that out. And I must say that for several clients, cutting out nuts and dairy has helped them break through those weight loss plateaus and restart losing weight.
Can they stay with nuts and dairy if they do like your protocol calls for intermittent fasting a couple of days a week? Would that work with them specifically or no?
Uh, I think not. I think not. Just kind of based on my experience with clients. I mean, if they're sensitive to nuts and dairy, and they eat them, you still eat 7 days a week if you're doing intermittent fasting.
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
so if they're eating them 7 days a week, even with intermittent fasting, it doesn't work very well. Uh, there's a book called The 30-Day Keto Cleanse. The 30-Day Keto Cleanse is by a lady named Maria Emmerich. I love Maria Emmerich's books. And in the 30-Day Keto Cleanse, she gives you recipes and a meal plan and a good little description of a very low carbohydrate diet at the beginning. Lots of good information at the start of the cook. It's like a cookbook and plan. And in the 30-Day Keto Cleanse, it's nut-free and dairy-free. So if you get stuck, that book is a good place to start. It's nut-free and dairy-free, and basically you do an 18-hour fast every day, which is you don't have breakfast. And so that's a good thing if you
Breakfast
get
and
stuck.
lunch or no? Or just breakfast?
Just breakfast.
I see.
hmm
I don't have any problem with the 24-hour fast. Now, I was doing them for a while there where I was doing 48 and 72-hour fasts, going 2 to 3 days. But I got to tell you, after that third day, I'm like, oh, man, I'm not feeling so hot.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I mean, 48 hours was okay. My wife thought I was crazy. She was like, you don't have to do that. She goes, that is it, because if you just modify your diet, you don't have to be,
Yeah.
you don't have to go be all painful about it.
Have you ever read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill?
I have not heard of it, though.
Well, Think and Grow Rich is one of the original kind of business self-help kind of books written in the 30s by a guy named Napoleon Hill. And Napoleon Hill, he would give lectures and courses on success. And I've downloaded one of his lectures, and he would say, how do I keep myself healthy? This is something that's not in the book. It's just in one of his lectures. He said twice a year I do a 10-day fast, and during that 10 days, all I have is water, maybe with a few drops of lemon juice in it. And doing a 10-day fast twice a year, I mean that. I would do that under the supervision of your doctor, especially if you take any sort of medications. But a 10-day fast twice a year, I mean that would be a really healthy thing to do. But for most people, just cutting the carbs out, but still being able to eat 3 times a day is much more appealing than doing a 10-day fast.
Yeah, that's pretty rough, right? I mean, 10 solid days. I may try one of those, though. Because I don't have, my insulin, my sugar, and stuff like that doesn't go berserko on a fast. I mean, By the third day, yeah, I'm kind of, just kind of tired or whatever, but it's not like I can't function. Of course, I still function. I will tell you though, at 48 hours though, I feel euphoria. It's really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It but when I'm fasting for more than 2 days, I know another thing too. I have energy to come to work. I have energy to do the show. I have energy, okay, but energy to go home and do a high intensity interval training, no. There is no way that I'm going to get out and run 6 wind sprints and rest a minute in between each wind sprint.
I'll
And
tell you,
that's just not going to happen. Not on a long time fast. I can't do that. I've tried it. I can't do it without just totally just spazzing out.
a great book, one that I'm going through right now is the new and updated Primal Blueprint um, by Mark Sisson. And in the Primal Blueprint, he goes through all of the details of a very low carbohydrate, well, not very low. He goes through all the details of a low carbohydrate diet, and then he details a lot about exercise, what's the best type of exercise to do. And I agree with most things in the book. The one thing I don't agree with is that he says for most people you'll lose weight eating 100 net carbs a day or less. And I think that probably because he's by training he's a personal trainer, and I think his clientele as a personal trainer are fit young people who exercise a lot, and so
That's fair. I
you know,
agree.
and so in my experience with the clients that I have, um, you have to go down to 20 or less net carbs a day to lose weight.
If you're over, say, the age of 40,
Yeah, if you're over 40 and
mid 30s, 40,
and
because
you're
your metabolism slows down.
and you're not a
On and on.
marathoner,
No, no. As a matter of fact, doctor, there was a. I meant to bring. I'm glad you brought this up because I read several stories. One out of the Mayo, CDC, some others that, and these are orthodox medical places. Obviously, I
right?
mean it's not like what we're talking about, but they all came.
It's not quackery.
Well, they would say it is,
Yeah,
right? I
right,
mean,
right.
but what they said was, and I found this fascinating. They said people over the age of say 40 years old, which I'm in that category. They said the last thing you really want to do is hit the gym like 7 days a week for an hour.
Yeah,
That they said that's counterproductive, and that really is not what you want to do.
and
Right?
so in the primal blueprint, he talks about most of your exercise should be just in the aerobic zone, and so you take 180 and subtract your age, so 180 minus 40 would be 140. And so, I mean, most of your exercise should be in that aerobic zone where you can, so a heart rate of 140 or less, to where you can still comfortably carry on a conversation. Um, and yeah, I mean, doing the sprints on a long-term fast, you're probably not going to do very well at that.
No, I
But
can't.
doing regular aerobic exercise with your heart rate kind of in that low aerobic zone, not pushing yourself too hard, you can do that all day long.
Yeah, and further, the studies went on to, and they said they tested that they followed 3,000 people doing various forms at various ages.
Uh-huh.
And so what I keyed in on was that 40 to 50-year-old group that they, did this study with, people who did the long, drudgery of lifting weights and doing an hour a day
Yeah.
at the gym 7 days a week, as compared to the group that they tested that did 3 to 4 times a week for 20 minutes or less
Mm-hmm.
on the HIIT stuff. And they were saying they found that at the end of all that, they were almost identical as far as weight loss, as far as cardiovascular stuff. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. So in other words, their point being is that more doesn't equal better
Right.
as you age. They were saying that actually more as you age actually could be detrimental because you're really stressing your joints, especially if you're doing high impact.
I'll tell
Not
you,
walking, but I mean doing like what I do.
my first recommendation for people who ask me about exercise is I go back to the recommendations of a guy named Dr. Blake Donaldson,
Okay.
who was a New York, I think, cardiologist who treated people with overweight and obesity. He claimed to have treated 10,000 people for overweight, obesity, heart disease. He put them on a very low carbohydrate diet. Basically, they had to eat a half pound of meat three times a day, and the meat was 75-25, so it was a good amount of fat in the meat. he didn't allow them hardly anything else in the diet. That was it. But he would have them, their exercise would be to go for a walk for 30 minutes first thing in the morning before eating anything. So it's a walk when you're fasted first thing in the morning. And that's just a really mild aerobic exercise. And he would also have people do some stretching exercises if they had back pain and stuff like that. And I would say that the trend in a lot of the kind of fitness and lifestyle books that are combined with a low carbohydrate diet is that if you exercise is great. Do it intensely when you do it, and do it less.
I've seen that a lot too. Yeah.
In the Bulletproof Diet by Dave Asprey, it's a low carbohydrate diet, but his exercise recommendations are basically that you can work out 1 day a week and you recover for 6 or 7 days. So you work out 1 day, you recover 6 or 7. In the most recent, in the primal blueprint that I've been going through, the recommendation for exercise is you exercise like 4 hours a week or less. Most of it's low intensity cardio. And then you do some, he says like 4 basic movements like squats, chin-ups, planks, and something else.
Push-ups probably.
Yeah, I think push-ups. And so do your 4 basic movements to build some muscle. And then we talked about the 4-hour body a week or two ago. And in the 4-hour body, he's like, you should exercise 4 hours a month. That's it.
Yeah. Wow.
4 hours a month. And
I don't know if I'd go crazy. I'd love to exercise. I don't know if I could do that.
Well, and
I just like to exercise.
In the primal blueprint, he talks about doing really high intensity exercise. When you're done, you feel great. And the reason you feel great is you're flooding your body, releasing tons of stress hormones. You're releasing lots of cortisol, and that stress hormones and cortisol, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel a high. But by doing that, you kind of burn out your body's ability to produce cortisol, and you burn out your body's ability to feel normal unless you're out there exercising. So
yeah, you can get, and again, that gets really murky too, depending on if you have adrenal issues, that kind of stuff. Or
I've been addicted to running before. It's like friends would say, hey, you want to go do whatever tonight, and I'd say, oh yeah, sure. Let me just finish I got to go do a 5-mile run first, and so that's real.
Now, when you were doing that, were you? When was that? Was that years ago? Where you were like still low weight?
Oh, that was when I was in high school.
Yeah, see, that's me too. I
loved
long distance running back then.
I was, my kind of normal weight was 180 pounds, and then I started running, and I would do 5 miles a day, and I didn't eat. So I was kind of starving myself and running, and I felt like a pit in my stomach all the time because I wasn't eating. And yeah, I lost down to like 166 pounds. So you can do that. You can starve yourself and do long distance running. It's kind of a miserable way to lose weight. And the weight usually comes back on because your body won't allow you to starve yourself forever. And so, I lost down to, I think, 160 or 166 pounds. And then when I went to college, most people in college, they'll put on a freshman 15. In college, I put on a freshman 30. So I went from 160 to 190.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
And I really get in a fraternity and drink beer.
There was actually some of that going on. Yeah.
Wow. Eat some pizza at night at 2:00 in the morning after drinking beer all day. That was good times, right?
The cafeteria was like, it's like horrible for in the cafeteria. You could have pizza 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, ice cream sandwiches. They did once a month. They did have steak night.
Where'd you go to college at?
I went to Baylor.
Baylor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That says a lot right there. Baylor.
Yeah, it was a good Baptist school.
Yes.
So I went to college at Baylor. I did medical school here at Texas Tech. I studied eye surgery at a place called the New York Eye and Ear Infirmary. It's the oldest specialty hospital in the Western Hemisphere. And then came back to Lubbock, and I do eye surgery here. I do cataract surgery on people. That's my day job, Monday through Thursday. And on Friday, I do metabolic coaching. I help people with diabetes, high blood sugar, high blood pressure, people who need to lose weight just by changing their diet. And, one of the things I like about the metabolic coaching is that in clinical practice, even in my clinical practice, I mean, really we spend about 10 minutes with each patient. And so it's like 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. That's what an office visit is. But when we do the metabolic coaching sessions, we get to spend 2 hours with somebody.
Yeah, right.
And in 2 hours, you can really explain how the body works, how the food affects the body, the changes that you need to make. And one thing I like about doing cataract surgery is that people come into the clinic, they have a problem, which is this cataract, and then I can operate and fix it, and they can go on about the rest of their life. No more problem. You fixed the problem. And that's something I like about metabolic coaching too, is people come in with their weight problem or their diabetes or their blood pressure. You teach them what to do, then you can fix the weight, the diabetes, the blood pressure, and they don't have the problem anymore.
Let me ask you this question, being the fact that you're an eye surgeon and cataracts and all the ailments that happen there.
Yes, sir.
If you are in shape and not obese, and again, another study I read last week saying that, again, we say it over and over again, but 2/3 of the American public now, 2/3,
Yeah.
are obese or overweight.
So 2/3 of the people, 2/3 of the people's weight is above average. So average people are now so being overweight is now
Yeah.
average. So you've now
A
met
BMI of 25 or more.
you've met your New Year's resolution. So you don't have to lose weight because you're now average.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
Well, no. I hear what you. I
heard that on the radio yesterday.
I know it's crazy. It is. We have the American diet is insane. We all know that now. Or let's say people who listen to this show know it is, but because we just we don't know.
And your kids and my kids are growing up in a world where most of the people that they see every day are overweight or
That's
obese.
right. That's correct. But back to the eye piece. Being a surgeon of eyes and all that, if because again, cataracts generally form in the older population.
Right. Uh-huh.
But if that older person had been, I guess what I'm trying to say is, could this kind of activity or this kind of diet, this kind of lifestyle change prevent cataracts?
Cataracts will catch up. Well, inside everybody's eye is a lens, just like a lens in a camera. And with time and age, that lens gets cloudy. Now, when is it? In some people, it gets cloudy at age 95. And in some people, it gets cloudy at age 35. What's the difference? People whose lens gets cloudy at age 35, they are usually type 2 diabetic. It's the blood sugar.
Okay.
And so things like high blood sugar, which is caused by a very high carbohydrate diet, high blood sugar, high blood sugar and type 2 diabetes, they cause people to get cataract earlier. Absolutely.
Does. So it does. That's the point.
Also, smoking. People who smoke, they get cataracts earlier. People who are obese, even though they're not diabetic, they tend to get cataracts earlier too. And I think that's probably because they have kind of pre-diabetes or subclinical diabetes. They do have some elevated blood sugars, but they're still able to their body can still control those blood sugars most of the time.
So that, again, if we're talking preventative, if you have a low carbohydrate diet and stay with it, the lifestyle change that we talk about, then you may delay the ramifications of cataract surgery, right?
Especially if it's related to type 2 diabetes or elevated blood sugars.
That's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I'll tell you that most of my clients that I see that get cataract surgery are between the ages 65 and 85. So the majority they're Medicare age people. They're retired between 65 and 85. I do occasionally see some who are 95, and it's amazing. Someone who is 95 years old and it's taken them 95 years to develop a cataract, they'll sit in your chair, they look young. The outside of their body looks young. They're not as wrinkled as you would expect at 95. And when I do their cataract surgery, the lens of the eye is soft. It's like the cataract of a 60-year-old. So they look young on the outside of their body. They are young on the inside of their body. And that's why at 95, number one, they live to 95, and number two, they don't develop cataract till they're 95. At the same time, I can do cataract surgery on somebody who's, say, a diabetic with very poorly controlled sugars, who's not taking, good care of themselves, and I can do cataract surgery on them at 40, and their lens can be 40 or 50, and their lens of the eye can be rock hard, just rock hard, just like a really really old cataract. And so, when you're born, the lens of the eye is soft and squishy, flexible. As you age, it gets hard, and the older you get, the harder it gets until it's rock hard like a table,
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, the controlling of the blood sugar has.
So does the 95-year-old patient of yours that's sitting in that chair that looks young and has got a soft eye lens,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
what had they been just eating well and doing, and just by doing what they do and not overloading on sugar?
Man, I haven't been able to figure it out.
Why is that?
I've been fascinated, and I think in studying longevity, people are people are doing lots and lots of studies trying to figure out why they live longer, why they live healthier. And I've asked.
It's like when you ask them, they'll say crazy stuff like, "Well, Doc, I'd take 2 shots of whiskey every day and smoke a cigar once a week." That kind of thing.
That they usually don't smoke, but but they, but yeah, they'll say something funny like, "Oh yeah, drink a scotch a day" or whatever. And so I would say most of it is genes, but because I'll ask them and say, "Were your parents long lived?" And they'll say, "Yeah, my dad lived to 100, my mom lived to 95 or something like that, or I have 2 brothers and they're both in their 80s." And so most of that's genetic, and we've talked about some people are carbohydrate tolerant.
That's true, right?
They can tolerate the bread and the carbohydrates, whatever, and
it doesn't affect them.
And it doesn't affect them. And so I don't know if those people tend to be carbohydrate tolerant and they live that long, or if there's some people who.
I think you're right. I think you're onto that. I think that's exactly what it is. Is that they're not the carbohydrates do not jack their insulin spikes. Doesn't mess with them, and they've got good genetics, and that's all you need. That right there, and you're going to live a long, healthy life, right?
The low carbohydrate diet, it's for people who want to change. If you're overweight and your pants are fitting too tight and you think it's time to do something about it, then do a low carbohydrate diet like metabolic coaching. Or if you have diabetes and you don't want to be diabetic, or you want to take less diabetes medicine, it's for them. But for a 95-year-old who's relatively healthy, who's in great shape, I tell them, keep doing what you're doing, because whatever you're doing is working.
Yeah, 95. My goodness. Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, I remember, when I did the radio show with Dr. Harlan Wright, and that guy, he was 95, and he'd come in here every day, and he just talking to him, you'd think the guy's 65 years old.
Yeah, he's one.
And I'd always ask him, I'd say, hey, what do you do, Dr. Wright, over there? What? And I think he was one of these guys that was, if I knew now what I knew back then, I would absolutely explore this with him, and I'm sure he would be fascinated as well, because I'd look at him at 95 years old and I'd go, yeah, but you look 65 and you act like 65.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
And and he would talk about all the things that he does as far as nutrition and all this kind of stuff. And but I thought, man, that's pretty amazing.
I'll tell you, I don't really get into longevity because a lot of people, they will look at the longevity research. They're trying to figure out how to make people live longer, healthier lives, and there's just too many variables. There are too many variables for me to do that.
The environment, your chemical exposures.
There's
so many things.
There's so many things, and so what I want you to do, I want you to be as healthy as you can now. Mm-hmm. I want you to feel as good as you can now. And I know that you're going to lower your heart disease risk factors, which is like the number one killer. You're going to lower your cancer risk factors. So all of those things are going to fall in line by eating a very low carbohydrate diet.
So it's safe to say, doctor, if the studies are accurate, and I believe they are, if they're saying 2/3 of the American public is either overweight or morbidly obese. That's amazing. 2/3 of us
Uh-huh.
overweight or morbidly obese, which is beyond 30 BMI, which I know you don't really like the BMI scale, but for argument, then that 2/3 is carbohydrate related, right?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay.
It's related to too many carbohydrates in the diet because what has happened in the last in, in the last 200 years. If you go back, say, 10,000 years before we had agriculture, the amount of carbohydrates that humans ate every day was just a tiny amount of carbohydrates. It was probably that 20 grams a day or less. You're probably sitting in that area. And then there's the agricultural revolution, and humans started growing rice and barley and oats and wheat. And so the amount of carbohydrate in our diet increased significantly. Interestingly, in the Primal Blueprint, he talks about when the agricultural revolution started and we started eating a lot of carbohydrate, human brain size went down and human stature went down. We got shorter and developed smaller brains when we started eating grains.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow, nice.
and then, what has happened in the last 200 years is that the amount of carbohydrate that we eat has just exponentially spiked. To where today the average, based on food disappearance data, the average American consumes about 150 pounds of flour and 150 pounds of sugar every single year.
That's an amazing amount.
And your body has no clue what to do with that much sugar and flour. And so you end up obese and diabetic with high blood pressure and your cholesterol's all messed up. So all that we do in teaching the metabolic coaching program is try to get you back to what your body is more attuned to eating, back to a more natural diet, which is less than 20 net carbs a day. And that's why all those things improve. It's real straightforward.
Yeah, it's not really a big mystery, is it? It's not.
It's not a big mystery. It's very simple. Now there are some people who they may have other problems, which they may be taking medications that cause weight gain, or they're eating hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated vegetable oils in snack foods and stuff, which can cause insulin resistance, weight gain, and bad blood sugars. Or they're just eating too many vegetable oils, polyunsaturated fats, which can cause insulin resistance and weight gain. So, I mean, there are some nuances there, but basically you go back to the beginning. And so that's what the whole idea of the paleo diet or the primal diet, or even, I talked about Blake Donaldson. His book called Strong Medicine was published in 1962. So he was doing this ages ago. He was a physician in the First World War. And,
Wow.
and so he was doing low carbohydrate diets once he got back to New York. But Blake Donaldson, he was trying to figure out a way to make his patients more healthy. And so he went to the Museum of Natural History in New York City, and he asked one of the paleontologists, or he said, well, what did these people eat? And they said they ate meat, and they ate the fattest meat they could get their hands on, our Paleolithic ancestors. And so he said, well, I'm going to try this diet of putting people on meat, the fattest meat they can get. And the amazing thing was, you think about, we have people with heart failure. And say someone with heart failure will go to the cardiac ICU in the hospital, and they treat them with all sorts of drugs and diuretics and things to help them with their heart failure. They didn't have all those drugs back then. And so what he treated heart failure patients with in the intensive care unit was a very low carbohydrate diet. All they could have was meat. And by doing that, the fluid would come off, their heart failure would get better, and they could get discharged home. And so it's about asking, what did we eat thousands of years ago? Well, that's probably what our body is attuned to eat. Because, and you and Dr. Ben talk about this, genetics doesn't change overnight. There hasn't been in the last 30 or 40 years, there hasn't been some amazing shift in our genetics to where now 2/3 of Americans are overweight or obese. It's not genetics. Our genetics are the same, but the food has changed.
Right.
So all we got to do is just switch the food back, and you're going to get some improvements.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And and again, I'm trying to do the combination deal where, yes, low carbohydrate, but I like to still exercise, and I don't mind fasting a little bit every once in a while. I mean, to me, because for me, fasting is easy because I look at it as a win-win because I'm like, hey, look, I don't have to go run around
Yeah.
town, go through a drive-through, spend money on nasty food that I shouldn't be eating anyway, and to get to save a little money. But not a lot of people can do that. Some people, they really don't like that.
Hmm.
They got to eat every 3 or 4 hours, or they feel like crap. And I'm perfectly okay not eating for a while. It doesn't bother me as much. Some people, like you said, like some people can do it. Some people can't.
And you don't have to fast to do a very low carbohydrate diet. Fasting is
That's
just
true.
another tool you can use to help you meet your weight goals, your wellness goals, your diabetes goals.
Right. That's all good.
Usually, what I do with clients is we start people off on a very low carbohydrate diet, and after they've done that, 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, or even 6 weeks, then if they get stuck, I'll say, well, why don't you do a 24-hour fast? If you reach a weight loss plateau. But I don't in general recommend that everybody fast, but it's something that can help you speed up your weight loss, speed up your recovery. But it's easier to fast after you've done a low carbohydrate diet and you've become fat adapted, because you've gotten used to running on fat for energy instead of running on sugar. When you're still a sugar burner, for most people, it is very difficult to fast. Um, and that has been and so I think it's kind of like torturing people to make them fast if they're not fat adapted already.
Torturing people.
It's just like
Oh,
on the show The Biggest Loser, right?
right.
On The Biggest Loser, they'll have these people who are obese, and they'll have them out running in the sand and doing
Pulling ropes,
pulling ropes.
tires
Yeah,
around.
they're just tearing up their joints. I mean, they're really they're like hurting their bodies doing these exercises while at the same time carrying around 400 pounds. I would much rather put people on a very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet, have them lose some weight, and then they could start doing some exercise and start doing some low impact exercise, maybe doing some weightlifting on top of that, which would not make for very good TV, because all they would, for the first several months, all they would do is sit around and eat delicious meals of like steak and a salad, right? And then they would start doing some walking and some low intensity cardio with maybe some strength training in there. So it wouldn't be as exciting of a show, but it's a much more reasonable approach.
Yes, I agree. Well, of course, give us a check out. Of course, you can do that. Metaboliccoaching.net. Metaboliccoaching.net. Of course, you can call us as well. 448-0322. 448-0322. Cut the Killer Carbs. Check it out on Facebook as well. Cut the Killer Carbs. Dr. Justin Anderson, everybody. Of course, we appreciate it once again, and we look forward to seeing you back here next Tuesday on the program. And so, very interesting stuff. Something's going to have to give sooner or later. I mean, the word is starting to get out, but I mean, I'm just talking nationwide. People, I believe, as a whole, are going to start waking up and going to their primary care physician and going, what is going on with me? I look like the girl on Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I think her name was, Violet, and she would turn into a big blueberry. I mean, why am I a big blueberry? And then the doctor's going to say, well, okay, recent research shows that you eat too many carbs.
I mean,
That's what it's going on.
the problem is the doctor doesn't really have the time to get into it with them. So they'll say, yeah, you need to lose weight. Here's a list of weight loss programs or whatever.
Sure.
I would just say that if you're local and if your patients come in and you're a physician, they say that, so refer them to metabolic coaching. I'd be happy to work with them for 3 months to help get them on the diet instead of just giving them a little one-page pamphlet.
Excellent point. All right, doctor, appreciate it. 448-0322. Give us a call today. Have a wonderful rest of the week. I'll see you back here next Tuesday on Cut the Killer Carbs.
All right, thanks, Wade.
Stick around now. Unconfused coming up next right here on AM 580.
Listen to your